My name is Dexter Ali. As in Marshallese, we say Yahweh. Sorry, it's kind of broken Marshallese. I wasn't raised speaking Marshallese, but I surely understand it. I have the distinct honor to introduce our distinct panel of current students and community leaders in the Salem-Willamette Valley area. First, I'd like to introduce Maureen Goddard. She also goes by Mira. She is from the small island of Palau with a population of about 18,000 people. Mira had a cousin living in Salem, Oregon. So as most islanders do, she moved in with her cousin, who helped her get situated at Shemeketa. She was lucky enough to get a scholarship at the counseling office to work as a peer assistant, which was the best thing that happened to her. She built relationships with amazing people, and even after Shemeketa, she went on to Western Oregon University, where she was awarded with a diversity scholarship, which helped her pay a significant portion of her tuition. At Western Oregon, Mira was able to obtain her BS in business with a focus in accounting. After graduation, she got a job at a public accounting firm in Salem, where she is working to obtain her CPA. Next, I'd like to introduce Joe Inlet. He was born and raised in the Cook Islands, Federated States of Micronesia. He moved to California in 2002 to finish up his undergraduate studies and then lived in Hawaii with his family for a few years. In 2007, he moved to Portland, where he completed his master's degree. In addition to serving his faith community, Joe has been an advocate for Pacific Islanders in California, Hawaii, and Oregon too. Among many other organizations and boards, he serves on a founding board member and former president of the COFA Alliance Network National Network. He currently works full-time at the Multnomah. She was born in the Cook Islands of Micronesia as well. She attends Missionary Memorial Church with her family and is a youth leader there too. In Rachel's spare time, she enjoys singing and playing the ukulele. Aspiring leader, future community leader, Rachel Suss. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Kathleen Jonathan. She is a native of the Republic of Marshall Islands. She and her family left the islands in order for her to pursue her undergraduate studies at the University of Hawaii in Hilo. After receiving her Bachelor of Arts degree, she and her family moved to Oregon in August 2002. Kathleen joined the Salem-Keizer Public Schools newcomer program as an instructional assistant for the English language learners, otherwise pronounced as ELLs. The program was created for students new to the United States who are not proficient in English. Kathleen is currently the Community School Outreach Coordinator for the Marshallese ELLs in the Salem-Keizer Public School System. Her position was created in 2004 and 2005 due to cultural misunderstandings and misconceptions between Marshallese students, their families, and the school district. As a part of her work, Kathleen shares cultural insights and or presents the schools with imperative information. And she shares this information with school staff and the schools about the culture and expectations within the families and the students' lives to help bridge cultural differences. Kathleen joined the Oregon Commission on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs as one of its commissioners in June 2014. She has also been involved with the Asian and Pacific Network of Oregon as a volunteer since 2012 and was recently hired as a part-time ELL parent organizer of the organization in July 2015 to work with Marshallese parents. Having experienced similar issues that the ELLs are experiencing today, Kathleen is very passionate about her work as an educator and as a volunteer. Her contribution helps to lessen the opportunity gap for all students of color and Micronesian descent. Let's give a round of applause to our distinct panelists. Today, I will be asking questions around a central theme, and this theme focuses on the awareness of challenges faced by Micronesian people in U.S. education system. The awareness and keys, their answers to the questions will be about awareness and keys to success for Pacific Islanders and the Micronesian students in the U.S. educational system today. So first question, this is for any of the panelists. What are some of the cultural barriers for first generations Pacific Islander youth when they first arrive to the United States and enter the American public school system?
Okay, I guess I'll start since I'm on this end. When I started here, so I grew up on an island where there's like 18,000 people and the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. And it was so laid back, it was so carefree. I remember being late by an hour is actually being early. And I think that was the hardest part when I started at Chemeketa. One, the weather, and just learning how stressful it is here and how high pressure it is here, and how people here have higher expectations for people. Like even if you're from Pacific Island, you explain this to them, they still expect you to be on time like everybody else. They still expect you to turn in papers like everybody else. And they don't give you leeway. Even if you're nice or even if, you're friendly, they still expect things from you. And I think that was the hardest part, the cultural difference between where I come from and beaches are nice and being late is okay. Not carefree attitude and how high strung it is here. I think that was the biggest disconnect I had, and I still have that now. So, yeah, I think that was the hardest.
Does anybody else have any other answers?
I feel very old sitting between these two young ladies. That's a barrier to me. So I think I experienced kind of the same thing, coming from a small island that you can walk around in less than a whole day. I was transplanted to the middle of Los Angeles, which is not that big of a city, right? It's a huge city. To me, the fast-pacedness of life, and also getting lost in it, kind of losing yourself, and then really trying to connect with other people, and not being able to, speak your language to other people, and having to translate what you really feel, and then put it into a different language, and then making sure that other people understand you. And when you're trying to say a joke, people get offended, or you try to offend somebody, and they laugh. So there's truly a disconnect there. And island people, we like to make jokes every day about everything, in church, in family, in a restaurant, everywhere. Humor is part of being able to survive. That you can laugh about things even when they're really hard. And so that kind of survival mechanism doesn't work in a culture where a lot of times it's very objective and very straightforward. So that to me was a big barrier. But that's aside from trying to get used to the pace of the classroom as well. And when you're sitting in the back because you're trying to be polite, and people think, oh, he's lost, or he doesn't understand anything, or not raising your hand, and people think that you're afraid because you're not tracking. So I think that's in terms of in the classroom, a lot of times you get assumed people assume that you are stupid or you're not as intelligent, but it's really because it's a different culture, and you like to listen first before you respond, or you want to respond in a kind of a very careful and diplomatic way so that you're not offending people, and yet speaking your mind in a respectful way. So there's a lot of other things, but I'll leave that alone.
For me, well, I grew up here, so I was basically raised an Oregonian, so I don't really know much, but I see it from my relatives when they come up fresh off the boat. And I think one thing that's a barrier for them is the westernized style versus island style. And it's the timing. Yeah, back home it's always island time, chill. But then when they come up here, it's like you gotta be on time every single day. And also the language barrier. I know back home now it's starting to change a lot. Some students or some of my relatives, they already know how to speak English. And they come up here and they're already prepared. They already know what to say. It's a shocker for me when I ask them questions in English and they reply back in English too. And I'm like, oh, you know how to speak English too? And they're like, yeah, we learned that too back at home. So I'm like, okay. So that's my answer.
Hello. I work with the Seucali Public School District, and so I work with a lot of the English language learners, students that are newly arrivals to the United States. And language barrier is number one on the list. And like the others have mentioned, differences of the two cultures. And so students get in trouble because of those differences. For example, in this culture, you are supposed to make eye contact when an adult talks to you, especially in the classroom. The teachers will talk to you. You're supposed to make eye contact. But in our culture, that is very rude. And so when you're telling a student, look at me when I'm talking to you, that's like saying, disrespect me. And so a lot of the times the students are being sent to the office because they're disrespecting the teacher when they're really not. And that's one thing that you don't really think about because you grew up with it, and you don't need to explain why you can't look at an adult straight in the eye. And little things like the teacher will be standing for elementary students. The teacher is standing in front of the class, maybe writing on the blackboard or the whiteboard. And the student is, answering with the eyebrows lifting. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And so there's no verbal communication, and so the teacher might think that the student is, is not paying attention or is not interested. Another thing is, I refer a lot of the students that have no medical or dental coverage to agencies outside the school district. So keeping an appointment, making a commitment, is not just the students, but it's also the adults, and it's because of the cultural differences. And so that's it works when you really make it a habit of calling the parents constantly. Hey, I'm calling to remind you about the dental appointment, which is next week. Then calling again several times. It doesn't take one call to get them to be reminded of the appointment. So it's constantly, every day, pretty much calling parents and sticking to that, making them stick to the appointment, because commitment is not a thing in the islands. It is, but in a different way. You don't make appointments to go see your relatives. You just show up, and they have to be prepared. And here, it's rude to just show up when you are not making an appointment. So little things that you really don't think about. And taking initiative at the schools, that is a big deal. Our students, we are taught to respect adults especially, and so you don't have an opinion. wait until you're told what to do. And so, when they're making group discussions or group projects, you're expected to do your share and come up with a lot of the ideas. And our students are not used to that. They're used to being told, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is the project. You're going to do this, that. They're not used to taking the initiative and leading. And so a lot of the times, they don't, they're seen as, oh, they're lazy when they're not. I think that's pretty much.
Yes, go ahead.
One more thing that I think is important, can you hear me? Is important to mention is the individualism that's part of this culture here. We're back home, it's very collective and very, community oriented. And so everything is done within the group and within the family. Everybody's role is for the good of the community. And so I think one of the big barriers for people who come to this culture and go to school is not having the same support networks that you're so used to. You can go back and, so a lot of times students would do their homework together, which here would be called cheating. Back home it's helping. And so you lose that support network where you come together with other people and can study together, or you go home and you hang out with the village, basically. And so I think going back home and being in my apartment alone, and having to study alone, I wasn't used to that. I was used to studying with other folks and brothers and sisters or cousins, or cousins, third and fourth cousins. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest barriers for island students.
Being the old folks here,
Yeah.
we have a lot to say. Along those lines that Joe mentioned, studying the individualism versus the communalism, it's not that they're cheating. It's really, it's a big deal if you fail, because it's not just you that is failing, it's your family. Your parents, you're representing your family, your parents, and so therefore, a lot of the time students will skip class if they're not done with their papers, their 10-page paper. That's another thing. We're not used to transferring. I think Joe mentioned you're not used to transferring your thoughts onto paper. And the way we speak is different than the way we write. And that's in the English language. In our language, however you talk is how you write. So it's a lot of repetitiveness, and so it's, a lot of the time students will skip the classes because, oh, I didn't do my homework. I said, why didn't you do your homework? Well, I got stuck. And there's nobody in the schools that can relate to that, because they're having to think in their native language, process in their native language, and then translate that up here, then transfer it onto a piece of paper. And that is really, really hard. The other thing I forgot to mention, cultural barrier, is the generational gap. My kids grew up here, but I really instilled our culture in the home. So a lot of the times we clashed because I was very strict. I made sure that, anywhere they go, they respect their elders. And they would come home telling me, Mom, you're the strictest parent of all our friends. Our parents are letting them go here and there. But we have to ask every time. And I think that's what our Pacific Islander students grew up with, is respect. And having to check with their parents quite often. And here, they teach students to be independent thinkers, right? Which is great. But sometimes I think, we give our freedom and they don't know what to do.
Kathleen, the next question's for you. I feel like you've already touched base on some of that, but as someone who works with the English Language Learners program, what are some of the challenges you face and some of the strengths of the children when it comes to helping New Islander youth to be successful in the U.S. education system?
There's with the differences between the cultures, mentality is different. And so therefore the mentality affects student behavior, student priorities, to be independent. Those are big challenges when you're trying to work with a student from the islands. And you know, I totally understand where they're coming from because I was there, but I had to adjust to a lot of the American ways here. You know, there's a sense of urgency in this culture, whereas the islands, you know, like one of our panelists mentioned, that it's very laid back. There's no sense of time. We don't use calendars. We joke a lot, and so you know, sometimes the joking, they don't know where to draw the line, and it can get pretty frustrating. You know, the students also lack confidence, and it's not because they're not sure of themselves, but it's because of the language barrier. When you can't speak a language, you can't express yourself 100%. And so, you know, they have so much to bring. They have so much that they bring from their home culture, but they can't express it 100%. Sometimes the way we bring up our children, you know, we're very flexible. It really depends on the family. And so some kids, they have no structure. The education system back home is so different. We just send our kids off to school, you know, hoping that they will be taught what they're supposed to be taught. I didn't go to school, therefore it's not my responsibility to help the student with homework. I'm sending him off to the school because the teachers know more than me. And so there's a sense of disconnection there. But here in the States, it's a partnership. The schools are expecting the parents to take their part and work with their students as well at home. It's sort of like a partnership. They send the kids to school, the kids go home, the parents are supposed to make sure that the students are doing their homework or they're helping their students do their homework. The strength I find, like I said, the students bring so much with them. They have rich culture, very respective way of raising. They respect their adults. They do not question authority. They're very calm. They you know, they're not pressured, and so it's really, you have a sense of really calm, you know, atmosphere when you're working with the students. Very religious. I think everybody belongs to a church or and they're very willing to help others without any thought of, okay, if I'm going to help you, you have to do this for me. There's none of that.
Thank you. As a recently graduated student and current student in college, Mira and Rachel, do you guys have any thoughts, personal experiences you'd like to share with the audience about Kathleen's answer? Yes, Mira and Rachel, do you guys have any thoughts or personal experiences to share with the audience about Kathleen's answer?
So when I actually came here, I knew English. I went to an English speaking school, Seventh-day Adventist. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. transition was easier, but like Kathleen mentioned, even though I did know how to speak English, there were certain barriers. Like I was, in nature, I'm not rebellious, and I was brought up not to be rebellious, and rebellion is questioning. So if I had to ask my parents, like, why can't I go there, that's rebellious. And so to question authority, that was hard too. But here it's, like asking questions and stating opinions of your own. That's something here that people push for, and it was hard for me to learn that. And so I think that was something that I struggled with as well. Oh, and like she mentioned, Joe mentioned it. They mentioned, so growing up in a society where everybody supports you and everyone's your friend on the island pretty much, or everyone's a distant relative. It's funny, I brought my husband who's from Oregon there, and I was like, no, that's my cousin. He's like, everybody's your cousin. I was like, no, really, that is my cousin. But when you have such a good support system back home and you come here, one, the weather's terrible here in the fall, in the winter, and almost even towards the spring. It's terrible. So on top of the weather being really bad, you're kind of, I mean, I had a cousin here and I had some cousins here, but still learning by myself and just not having peer groups is really hard. And that support system, in a sense, helped me when I was back home. So being here, not having that support system was really hard. So finding a good support system of people, I mean, you have friends who want to go out with you, but having that disconnect between friends who want to go out and friends who actually want to see you succeed because they're going the same path as you're going is also really helpful to have. Because I mean, you can go out with anybody and have drinks with anybody, have a good time, but are they there when you need to do homework? And they're fine if you're not going to go with them, not going to have a birthday with them. Are they okay? Are they still going to be your friend? I think those were really good boundaries that I had to set up when I came here, because I really wanted to be friends with everybody and I wanted to have a ton of friends, but I needed to know what my goals were, and I needed to find people who had those same goals and wanted me to succeed in those goals as well. Yeah.
For me, the challenge for me is helping relatives, my younger relatives, to further on their education. It's difficult because their parents, I know the parents are supportive in a way, but sometimes parents can also, from my experience, parents are sometimes barriers. So me trying to further my education, my parents sometimes can get in the way of it. And it's a struggle. It's hard being the only one in the family to want to further education. That's the challenge for me, and one of the strengths for me is also back at home, before I came out here with my brothers, I was also taught how to learn English. So that was kind of something easy for me to transition back home to up here and then immediately enroll in school. I already knew, how to respond back in the language here.
Rachel, next question is for you. As a current student, what specifically about the U.S. education system has helped you be successful?
I guess being these programs that they have here that are to help us minorities and
Before we open it up to the audience, this is for all of you. If you were to sum up in a few short words, what are you most thankful for about where you are today and how you got to where you are?
Wow, that's a pretty safe pass, because to sum up everything changed my life, and I continue to meet people that have changed my life and perspective on things. I mean, I met my husband here in college, and I think he's been like a blessing. He's changed my life a lot and like the way I look at things. And it's funny because when I left my island, I was so happy to leave. I didn't want to go back. I was so tired of like the small little island stuff and the little everybody knowing your business. And I was tired of that. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna go somewhere fresh and where nobody knows me. That's a lie because a lot of people did know me when I came here because I knew clowns and everybody knows everybody. And so when I came here, I was so happy to leave my country, and I was tired of the food too. But then when I met my husband, who's an Oregonian here, and we went back, I forgot how thankful I am for being who I am, you know? Like, yeah, we're islanders, yeah, we're laid back, yeah, people see us as lazy, but we're not. We have like she said, we have respect, we have rich cultures, and sometimes you have to leave to see that. And sometimes you have to meet new people to see that. And America is one of the biggest places you can meet different people, you can experience different things. And I think that's the most thankful I am. I mean, yeah, success will come and go, but it's the bonds that you make with people, it's the experiences that you have, and the memories that you make that remind you why you're living, you know? And I think that's what I'm most thankful for. Just meeting an abundance of a lot of different people here and building relationships and great.